circles, but and it's a similar the names look the same. They have the same, it's always like an American flag banner picture. The Twitter, like the profile picture is like an eagle, or a dog. Or like a picture that if you drop it into Google image search, it'll like pop up, some random, just some person who is obviously not that person. It's a movie still, or it's a public domain picture from somewhere. Just, I didn't actually do this with any of these people because I truly don't care. Though I did respond to some of them largely to sort of because it was funny. Like, like there were funny jokes to be made there. But yeah, it was really bizarre to watch it roll out in real time. Like, oh, this is how this works. And it's fun, like friends were texting me like, "Are you okay?" And I was like, "What? What? Roll farmers? Yeah, I'll be all right. Thank you for caring, but trust me, I'm like way more fascinated than I am upset."
Yeah,
So yeah,
the whole thing was bizarre. I was sort of watching it, occasionally from the sidelines, and it was so strange. I
it's really surreal.
It's bizarre to me the number of people who said Chicago.
Right. So that was one of the big talking points. They all say Chicago. So of course, I'm sure your listeners know that you are. Am I correct? You live on the south side of Chicago,
I do.
and are you dead?
I am not. As of
Amazing.
right now, this second, I am not dead.
I myself
It is-
lived on the south side of Chicago as well for 2 years, and
Mhm.
I am also not dead.
You are not dead. It is incredible.
I
Incredible.
even
It's a
walk
wonder of
my
both of you.
little kids around the streets on the south side of Chicago.
Incredible.
I know.
Yeah, I mean, I spend a lot of time in New Orleans, and actually, the city I live in, Lafayette, has a higher violent crime rate than New Orleans proper. And yeah, I too am still alive. Yeah, it's incredible.
I believe at one point you tweeted something about how you would rather walk around naked on the south side of Chicago than go to
I would.
the parking lot of a gun show.
Yeah, I would. And largely not actually because, I think that I'm likely to get shot in the parking lot of a gun show. But I just think the company would be better naked on the south side of Chicago. I think I'm probably equally not likely to have anything happen to me. And a friend of mine who actually works in social services in the sort of tougher parts of New Orleans was like, yeah, I actually have seen people walking around naked on the streets of New Orleans having had a mental health problem or something. And, what happens is an old lady comes and gives them a blanket.
Mm-hmm.
They do not, in fact, get shot. That is not what happens. Like the neighborhood takes care of them, like every neighborhood takes care of everyone everywhere. And yes, Chicago does have gun violence problems. So does the entire rest of the United States. And it's it's not, but yeah, Chicago, they're obsessed. Chicago, because Chicago is really just a racist dog whistle. They say Chicago and they just mean black people.
Mm-hmm.
And
Well, and
Obama.
especially when they say inner city Chicago. Like, I don't even know what part of Chicago that's supposed to mean. The inner city? Like, the inner city, you mean the loop where, like, all the lawyers work? Like, what do you mean by inner city?
Do you guys know anything about the geography of Chicago?
No, clearly they do not. Yeah.
At all. Detroit is another one that comes up occasionally. Though Detroit does maybe have a slightly more donut shape, I guess. But yeah, Chicago, it's like, no, that's not how. There's inner, like by the bean, like right there, like right in the middle of the park.
Yeah, definitely. Right in Millennium Park.
Right,
Filled with
there.
Guns.
Yep.
Yeah.
Chicagoans somehow, I mean, with your super strict gun laws, it is a wonder how anyone drives, a half an hour to anywhere else and buys guns. It's just truly, it's a mystery for the ages.
Myself have died 7 times. So.
It's incredible. I as many as 12 times before breakfast. Like it's
Chicago also has extremely high cigarette taxes, and yet I see people smoking. So I don't know how that happens.
Incredible. I had somebody actually tweet to me. It was like, well, you see this in Chicago and Detroit, but not in LA and New York. I was like, wait, do LA and New York not have black people? Like, I don't understand what point you're trying to make here. Like, you get that that's not all right. I don't, like, I actually don't even know exactly where they were going with that.
Yeah.
Like, New York also has strict gun laws. What's the okay.
Yeah, and for people who don't know Chicago, Indiana is very, very, very close. Like, I can't see Indiana from my house, but I can walk 5 minutes away from my house and see Indiana. Not that I can
Mhm.
walk to Indiana, but I can see it across the lake. It is not very far away. There are certainly not border control agents between Indiana and Chicago.
You
And
should
sometimes
consider
you
it.
don't actually even know that you've gone into. I've had issues where I've been driving around the Chicago area and not actually known that I went into Indiana.
Mm.
So like it's really easy to just slip into a different state accidentally.
So I grew up in upstate New York, sort of in the part that goes over, not the up and down part, the part that goes over, and about 45 minutes from Pennsylvania. And you always knew you were in Pennsylvania because there would be fireworks stores. Fireworks were illegal in New York State, and they are legal in Pennsylvania. So of course they sell them all on the border, because that's literally how this works when you do not regulate interstate commerce things. Like you buy cheap cigarettes and uh, and fireworks on the border of Pennsylvania, and Pennsylvanians would come to New York to buy 6 packs of beer because for some reason I think you couldn't buy less than 24 or something in Pennsylvania. Like you had to buy them by the case or some stupid thing.
There
That's
are
what we used
also
to do in Ohio. They used to not. Youngstown is 10 miles away from the Pennsylvania border, and Pennsylvania didn't tax clothes.
mm,
So you go to Pennsylvania to do all your shopping and then come back to Ohio because why?
Yes,
You know.
right, of course.
yes, Indiana is also a bastion of fireworks sales.
Ah,
That is also how there are fireworks in Chicago.
right. It's amazing. It's like it's almost as
Maybe
if you're allowed to move things across state lines without anybody checking.
maybe we should build a big beautiful wall between
That's an idea.
Illinois and Indiana.
That's an idea. Yeah.
That would
Yeah.
derail my plans for getting to Ohio for the holidays, but other than that, it would be fine.
I'm sure they'll let you across. Come on.
I'm not the one they're trying to stop.
Exactly.
I'm not sure that Indiana wants me, but Illinois would want me back,
That's
so
right.
we'll
But
be
if you
okay.
really promise that you'll go to Ohio and not stay.
Maybe we could talk a little bit about Facebook too,
Mm.
because I know, Megan, that you've had actual extended, I don't know if they've been fruitful or not, you can tell us, but extended sort of threads going on your Facebook wall with people that you don't always agree with. And that's something, I was saying on our episode, or on the segment we were recording last night, that I just don't interact ever with people I don't agree with, which is also probably not the healthiest way of dealing with it. But I've been so interested to see actual back and forth exchanges, whether they're productive or not, on your wall.
So this is terrible. This is me being a bad person. I tend to not get into things unless I'm pretty sure I'm right. And when I do get into things where I'm shaky about it, I usually end up regretting it. Because just because it ends up being like, I think these media lend themselves to sort of aggressive confrontation. And it's like, wow, I just like got aggressive fighting with somebody over like something that I don't even care that much about. Like and it just got like weird and aggressive. And it's like, we're both like mutual friends of this person and we're like on their wall fighting. And it's just, I just kind of wish I hadn't gone in. Like when I feel confident about my position, really confident, like I really am sure that like I'm I'm right about this one, then I will sort of defend it tooth and nail. But if I'm shaky about it, and it's not that I can't have my mind changed, because I totally can. I just often feel icky about the conversation. It's just the way it went and the sort of interaction. It just like ugh, kind of feel dirty. So yeah, I don't know if I generally when I sort of go in to duke it out with somebody, I there are certain types of people who I just won't fight with, like people's like obviously like Bill O'Reilly spewing racist uncles who just come in and just regurgitate things and don't really say anything. Usually I just make fun of them. Which is like my own defense mechanism, I guess. Don't be like me. At home. Don't do this. Though, if you feel like you just need to make fun of somebody, if they're being racist and stuff, you're totally allowed to. Don't feel bad about it. But if you're just arguing about more less crucial to actual people's actual lives and livelihoods and safety kinds of politics, you don't actually have to get in.
Yeah, I mean, I think what I see sometimes going on is like the white man who's trying to have women explain feminism to
Oh
him
my
sort of
God.
interaction. Which the women who join in your conversations do not seem to appreciate.
No. So one really funny example that so this is a good example of like a time that I'll just like get ridiculous because it's just too much. So there was a meme going around, and it was something like they found what they think was like the first calendar, and it was a stick with 30 notches on it. And somebody said, well, of course, something about blah blah, the first man. And someone said, well, actually, it's more likely the first woman. And it was just kind of funny. And it's like, yeah, not that even any of this is true, just like it's worth occasionally rethinking how you think about things. Like, oh, actually, a woman might actually be more likely to need a calendar to tell her 30 days than a man would. And so, like, in prances this sound guy friend of mine, and I swear to God, he's a good guy. Like, he's smart and he's funny and he's generally, but he's like, well, actually. And he goes into like, he's like, men could need to know 30 days for plenty of reasons. What about the moon phases so that they know when the tides so that they can hunt for the shellfish? So there were a bunch of us in the thread like, do go on. Like, please tell us more. But he's like, why would women need to know? You find out there, and then he's going into like, on average, the average menstrual period isn't even 30 days. It can be anywhere from 27 to 34. And we're like, no.
Wait, hang on. So for our listeners, I just want to make sure I have this straight. A man was explaining to women what the average menstrual cycle.
Yeah, because we were obviously being ridiculous and hysterical by saying the 30 days is relevant to women, especially if you're trying to like, know if you're pregnant or not or something.
Kind of important.
Right. And no, well, that's not even the average. Like, oh my God. Sir, I can't even. So that's the sort of time that I'll just like kind of get ridiculous and really have fun with it. Because it's just like, how can you not? Like, and sometimes it's sort of, you give them enough rope and let them do their thing.
It may be worth noting here that you have an especially large number of Facebook friends.
I do, and I tend to leave comments public. So so I have a large number of Facebook friends, and they come from really because of different. So I worked in the music industry for a long time, so I have like a bunch from there, and then I have an extended group of knitter friends, which is how I know Kelly. And then I have I'm from a small town, which of course means every single person in a small town. Like people who live in big cities know like 300 people. People who live in small towns know all 1,500 of them. So all of them are my friends. And just various all these little subgroups. So I've got these tendrils reaching out into all these different sort of odd and disparate groups. It sort of brings together. So when they start coming in and then start bringing their relatives and friends with them, it can get a little odd. And because I know a lot of sort of artist types, but then also I live in the South, so have done some work with traditional music in the South, which it sort of splits. There are a lot of left-leaning people, but there are a lot of right-leaning people who I'm a redneck from a redneck family, so I've got relatives who show up and then they start dragging their friends in, and I end up with these sort of extremes, a lot of like really far out there left wingers, and really far out there right wingers, and sometimes I just sort of start stuff to watch them go at each other just for entertainment.
Well, and our knitting group can never not fight back. So.
No, I know, and it's like calling in the cavalry.
All right. Well, I think with that we're going to wrap up. But Megan, thank you so much for.
You're welcome. I don't know that I've actually offered any advice, but the troll swarm thing was a really interesting thing to witness in real time, and something that watching it happen in real time makes you really realize how it happened when when it was real issues and when it was